Texting and driving and speeding over 90 miles per hour.
These are things that could get you in real trouble.
But Chief Investigator Jeremy Finley says it wasn't a citizen doing it. It was a state trooper.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Southern Draw Law. My name is James White, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, former police officer. A couple of weeks ago, I did a video that was sort of a follow-up on a previous video I did about Tennessee troopers and Tennessee police officers, specifically in the Middle Tennessee area, making DUI arrests that ultimately end up being unfounded or below the burden of proof that the state would need to have in order to convict the person. And so there's been like a news investigation from a Nashville station and a particular investigative reporter that's kind of been, to be quite frank, on the Tennessee Highway Patrol for a while now about this type of stuff. Well, along the way, as a story that has become sort of ancillary to that investigation, the public first learned of Tennessee Highway Patrol trooper Dustin Cotton, who was recently decertified because of his dishonest tactics and the way that he was doing police work, including stopping people that he knew just to get a contact listed, or not stopping people at all and calling in a traffic stop just because he ran a tag in a parking lot. But I thought it might be interesting because the Tennessee Post Commission meets periodically, and during their meetings, they look at reasons to decertify police officers. And so I thought I would share the news story with you guys about Mr. Cotton, as well as show you some excerpts from the Tennessee Post Commission so we can see Mr. Cotton's attempt at defending himself. I thought it might be interesting for you guys to see sort of a behind-the-scenes look at how some of this stuff works. So with that, we'll go check out the news story that sort of brought this to the public forefront, and that comes to us from WSMV4 Nashville. Now, I have edited some of the video just for the purposes of our discussion, but I would encourage you to head over to WSMV4's channel, give them credit for doing the journalistic work. This is really important, and they are on the THP about this problem. So let's go check it out, and we'll come back and talk about it.
Ghosts this time of year are haunting Dustin Cotton. Not that kind, but rather ghost stops. The supervisors of the former THP trooper say he admits to making ghost stops. That's when an officer tells dispatch he's running a license plate, so it looks like he was making a traffic stop, but actually never stopped the driver. It's among the reasons the THP wants the state board that certifies officers to strip him of his license. But Cotton is ready to push back.
I don't feel like anything I've done is ethically wrong, morally wrong, or illegal.
What I thought it might be useful for you guys to do is to actually listen to the Tennessee Post Commission hearing, to hear how these officers are questioned, to hear how the process looks. Basically, it looks to me like you have the first thing is an informal process where the department sends your information over to the Post Commission and says, I'd like to decertify this person for whatever reason. So they give their reasons, right? They have like a system called a CADIS where they have to go in and report when an officer leaves an agency, and that goes to the Post Commission. And as part of that, the department can choose to send that officer's information over to the Post Commission and ask them to be decertified. Well, when that happens, then the Post Commission meets, they bring the officer in, and they have an informal hearing. And then at that informal hearing, there's a 3-commissioner panel that votes on whether or not to take no action, or whether or not to advance the hearing from an informal stage to a formal stage where all the commissioners, or most of the commissioners, as long as they don't have a conflict, will vote on whether or not to decertify this officer, or sometimes there'll be like remedial training or something like that suggested and allow them to keep their certification. So it looks like Mr. Cotton has already passed the informal part, and they're doing the formal hearing about whether or not for him to retain his certification. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and play it, and it's going to be a bit of a long video. I'll cut out some dead space and that kind of thing to try to shorten it up, but I'm going to go ahead and play it, and then I'm going to stop at various points and kind of give my thoughts on what I think he's saying and what I think should be concerning about it. But I thought it would be a good thing for you guys to see sort of how this process plays out. So let's check out some more.
All right, Dustin Ray Cotton. Mr. Cotton was submitted for decertification based on his resignation in lieu of termination. I believe we have Mr. Cotton here. Sir, if you'll wait just a moment, we're going to hear from the Department of Safety first. So if you would, sir, I know you're a frequent guest here, but if you would, just for the record, state your name and rank and and who you're with, and then go ahead and tell us why you're here.
Yes, sir. Sergeant Toby Carter, Department of Safety, Office of Pressure Accountability. Mr. Cotton, his resignation in lieu of termination, there was two separate investigations. The first investigation, Mr. Cotton arrested someone on December 3rd, 2022 for DUI. Due to that, arrest, he brought the person into court. In that judicial proceeding, Mr. Cotton was subpoenaed by the court on 5 separate occasions. He ignored the subpoenas and did not appear in court. On November the 2nd, the last time Trooper Cotton was supposed to be in court, the judge dismissed the charge of DUI, for failure to prosecute. That's the first investigation. The second investigation, our department was notified in October 2023 that Mr. Cotton was hanging out at the Marshall County EMS offices for extended periods of time on numerous occasions, and that potentially he had conducted a traffic stop in the parking lot of the EMS facility of an employee of the EMS facility, and then called employees out to witness part of that. So during that investigation, there was a review of Mr. Cotton's videos from August of 2023 and September of 2023. Also on the incident involving the traffic stop in the parking lot. So on September the 3rd, Mr. Cotton conducted a traffic stop of an EMS employee for allegedly not wearing her seatbelt in the parking lot of the Marshall County EMS office. He called his friends inside the office to come outside to witness the traffic stop and thought it was funny. He ran the employee's information and had it through dispatch and had it come over the speaker so those employees that came outside could hear that, and was laughing about it. And when asked, was it a legit traffic stop, he stated it was funny, but he needed enforcement action for his, accountability for working that day. And he admitted in his interview that he had no intention of that when he made that traffic stop to take any action anyway. He just thought it was funny and thought it would be, cute to do. Almost every day in August of 2023 and September of 2023, Mr. Cotton frequented the Marshall County EMS offices, and he would stay there for the most part his entire shift, no matter how many hours he worked. His sergeant witnessed him on October 4th and 5th being at the EMS office, coming to and fro. On one of the days, they witnessed him. They came in, and he was sitting on the couch with his shirt undone and his gun belt off, just hanging out, taking a break, and had been there for the most, again, for the duration. During the investigation, we reviewed his in August and September, his work and his camera. He was caught in August 11 times not having his body worn camera on while interacting with citizens, 10 times speeding. And what happens with the trooper cars, when you reach 90 miles an hour, it automatically activates their camera. So it doesn't matter if you have on your blue lights or not. If you hit 90 for whatever reason, it turns on the camera. And that happened 10 times. And then there were 4 times he was either on social media or texting while driving. In September, he again had 5 more times where he was speeding and hit that 90-mile mark where he was not running emergency traffic. There were 4 times where he didn't have on his body worn camera while he was interacting with citizens. And there were 6 times while he was driving where he was either texting or he was scrolling through social media. During the investigation, Trooper Cotton was asked about traffic stops. He admitted that he had made previous traffic stops on buddies with no intentions of enforcement action, simply because it was funny to him. He admitted that the stops were not preceded by any violation of the law, just the fact that he knew them. He also admitted, so Mr. Cotton was a state trooper. He voluntarily resigned, no investigation or that. He just left service and then he came back on his own. So he admitted in this investigation that during his first period of employment, he conducted traffic stops, and they call them ghost stops. So what he would do is while he's sitting wherever, it could be in a parking lot or a intersection, he would see a tag, he would go on his cab and put himself on a traffic stop with that license plate, never make the traffic stop. And then, 6, 7, 8, 10 minutes later, he would go off in the cab again and say, he was back in service and he issued a warning, but he never actually did anything. He just ran, he had the tag right there and he could get it from anywhere. We did not, because it had been so long ago, we could not find the evidence of that, but he admitted to that in the interview. So based off the totality, the recommendation for termination was sought, but as noted before, Mr. Cotton, I believe he resigned April the 10th of 2024 before everything was approved in lieu of termination.
My name's Dustin Cotton. I was a Tennessee state trooper. I was employed from, I believe it was August the 28th of 2016 until, minus the 6-month break that I had until April 10th of this year. So first I want to start out with the court, which the court issues what he stated. So for, I would say probably 90% of my employment with the Highway Patrol, I work night shifts. This last issue, when all this was going on, I had just swapped over to day shift. So I work night shift. Basically on night shift, we don't really have a lot of night cars. It was myself and one sergeant, and he was out, me, myself, and I. So I would cover Marshall County, Murray County, Lawrence County, Giles County, a lot of times Lincoln, Bedford, Moore, and occasionally Hickman County also. So the amount of time in which I was responding to wrecks in all these counties. So I would work all night, and then I'd get up and I'd go to court during the day. Then I'd work all night, get up, go to court during the day. My current supervisor during the time, before he was my supervisor, was a trooper in Giles County where the court issue had occurred. And he had made multiple statements before. It's like, oh, they'll call you if they need you. Yes, I did receive subpoenas, multiple subpoenas for that state. Yes, I should have went. However, I did not. As a DUI, I was one of the top DUI enforcers every year for my career. 1 year even getting top DUI enforcer for Middle Tennessee. I have a lot of court cases. I did not go. I did not receive a call. The last date in which I didn't go when all this spun about is she called me in the morning. She said, "Hey, would you care to swing by court? We have this case." I said, "Yes, it'll be an hour, hour or two, and I'll be there." Never heard anything back. Called, didn't get anything. Called my sergeant. My sergeant said they'd already called, made a complaint, and that was it. That was it from there. So as far as not going to court, yes, it was on me. I was subpoenaed. I should have went, but I didn't, based on kind of how things went. Because I had a lot of other cases that I didn't go to unless they called me. And they called for a lot of different cases. Hey, can you be here this day? Hey, can you come to court? Absolutely. Didn't receive any of those until the last day in which all this transpired. Hanging out at the EMS. So I've messed up a lot, obviously, as a trooper. I was certified prior to the Highway Patrol. But when I messed up, I owned it. As far as reporting out in the EMS, that is true. However, I'm not going to make excuses, but I'm going to today. Just prior to that, my wife had gotten thrown off one of my horses. She broke her back, broke her neck, and broke her ankle. She was out of work. She's also law enforcement with the Lincoln County Sheriff's Department. She's no longer because she can't do it anymore. So during the day, I would work, do that, help her. I also have an autistic daughter whom we had to pull out of school for some health issues. So back and forth, my activity sucked. It was awful. Not gonna lie. Hanging at EMS, was tired. I wasn't a trooper. I was a trooper, but I wasn't a very good one at the time. So that was hanging out. I just wasn't working. That's the gist of it.
Okay, so first and foremost, he just started this all wrong. And I don't care that he was decertified. I'm happy that he was decertified. He had no business being a police officer in the first place. But whenever you're called on the carb, look, your department is trying to decertify you. They're calling you a liar. They're saying you have no integrity. The first thing you do is you look at your phone and you start using your notes to begin immediately explaining what you did. How about a statement where you show some contrition and some remorse and take some responsibility. Like, we call it falling on your sword. Why just fall on your sword, beg for mercy. Like, you're caught red-handed. It's not like you have any excuse whatsoever, but these guys have a lot of like narcissistic personality disorder traits, right? So it's really just about, well, they're the victim. That's what it always is. They're the victim and they're going to defend themselves. One thing I want to highlight here is how sort of lackadaisical he talks about his obligation to come and testify in support of the state's case against a defendant. So this guy's out, he's telling you already that he covers 5 counties, right? And then he says responding to wrecks. Now, this isn't always the case, but in a lot of states, the difference between a highway patrol department and a state police department is that the states where they have a state police department, like West Virginia and Kentucky, those states, troopers are assigned as regular patrol officers with conjunctive duties. So they'll have traffic duties, and that'll kind of be their primary, but they'll also answer calls, and they'll run calls with rural agencies or maybe in cities where they don't have a big police presence. But they'll basically serve as coverage for areas where there's regular calls for service. So in Kentucky, West Virginia, and Virginia, you're going to have troopers that are running calls, you know, your regular 911 hang-up call or a burglar alarm or just anything, any domestic, anything that any police officer might run that's on regular patrol. In states where you have highway patrol, their functions are really only traffic related. And they do criminal law enforcement, but it's always law enforcement that is born out of those traffic interactions. And so in Tennessee, the primary role of the Tennessee Highway Patrol is to respond to accidents and traffic enforcement and DOT inspections and commercial enforcement for commercial vehicles. So when he's talking about, you know, I might have wrecks, what he's saying is that his jobs are basically these. You're out for a 10-hour shift. Your jobs are to respond to wrecks in the counties that you're covering and stop cars and make contact. That's your whole function as a Tennessee Highway Patrol trooper. And so the issue, I guess, that I have, one, it's not congruent to suggest that you've had a conversation with a prosecutor and the prosecutor said, well, don't worry about coming unless, you know, blah, 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 blah. And it is true that there are times, I would say probably, if a case is set for preliminary hearing, at least in the courts where I work, only about 10% of the cases that are set for a hearing actually go to a hearing. There's either a last-minute plea deal, or the witness doesn't show up, or the prosecutor drops the charges for whatever reason, or whatever. But for whatever reason, only about 1 out of 10 cases that are scheduled for hearing go. So it does make sense to me that if he did a lot of DUI enforcement arrests, he would potentially have a relationship with the DUI prosecutor in the jurisdictions where he worked, where they would say, look, don't worry about coming unless I tell you I need you to come. But that also means that you have to be ready to come at the drop of a hat when the prosecutor needs you. And so it sounds to me like on this particular occasion, the prosecutor said, hey, I need you. And he's like, yeah, it's going to be 2 hours. Well, he doesn't ever show up, and the prosecutor makes a complaint. So if it really was a case where he wasn't actually needed to be there, why would the prosecutor make a complaint? So it's incongruent with his statement about whether or not he was supposed to be there. But the real point I think that stands out to me is nobody cares about the freaking person who's lost, you know, $8,000 to $10,000 because they had to hire a DUI lawyer. They had to miss work. They might have lost their job altogether, and they're at risk of losing their livelihood. Meanwhile, you can't decide whether it's important enough for you to come to court. So anyway, let's watch some more. This guy, just as a preview, he pretty much does nothing but make excuses. And then when he's asked a direct question about whether or not he can see the problem with this, then he finally admits it. But this dude's a shithead. Like he has no regard for the people that he arrests, nor does he have any regard for anything other than the paycheck. And that's kind of a big problem in law enforcement right now. Let's watch some more. Okay, this is a great glimpse of what we're dealing with here. When I mess up, I own it. In the midst of talking out of the other side of his mouth while he's making excuses. I'm not one to make excuses, but today I'm going to, right? In the middle of making excuses. My wife got injured. She was in law enforcement. She wasn't able to do it anymore, so she had to retire. And then I've got an autistic daughter, and I'm covering 4 counties. Now, I personally have an autistic daughter. She's very high functioning. You would never know, but that's not the point. The point is, there are challenges with having a special needs kid. That is not what he's accused of doing. The idea that you've got a kid that has some issues where you need to help. You've got an injured wife. They didn't fire this guy. They're not trying to decertify this guy because he was spending too much time at the house trying to tend to his family. His supervisors would have probably worked with him on that. You talk about personal awareness. This guy has no personal awareness. It just lost on him. The idea that, okay, if you've got a kid that has special needs at home and you've got an injured wife, then you should be at the house. If you're dicking off on duty and you're not doing what you're supposed to do and you're not completing the mission of the agency where you work and you're at your house taking care of these problems, that's at least a justification, right? Whether or not it's a justification that the commissioners will see as worthy of doing what you did is a different matter, but at least you have something where somebody could say, well, you know, if I was in that situation, I might do the same thing. The point is that he was not tending to his family. He's sitting at the EMS parking lot, and my guess, and this is just, it would not surprise me if this were the case. So I'm not saying this, I don't want to defame the guy, but it would not surprise me if the case was, because I've known a lot of police officers over the years, more than likely he's got some sort of a relationship with somebody who works at that EMS office. There's no reason for police officers to be hanging out outside of the fire department and the EMS. Firemen and policemen do not generally, they're like oil and water in a lot of ways. So the only reason why a police officer would be hanging out at the fire department or the EMS office is because he's got some sort of a relationship with somebody. So maybe it's a really close friendship. Maybe he just wants to kill time, whatever. Maybe it's a small community of first responders, whatever it is. I'm not saying that he's got like a girlfriend or anything like that. But it would not surprise me if any of those scenarios were in fact true. But you're not at home taking care of your autistic kid. You're not at home taking care of your injured wife. You're sitting at the freaking EMS office pulling over your buddies acting like a jackass. And your excuse for that is to somehow pretend like it had something to do with the stress level you were dealing with at home. You ain't at home, bro. You ain't doing what you're supposed to be doing. Not only are you neglecting your responsibilities for the agency that you work for, where the taxpayers are paying you $70,000, but you're also neglecting your family at home and using their conditions as an excuse for not doing what you're supposed to do in either place, and it doesn't make any sense. He doesn't have any awareness or any sort of accountability, like it's like an allergy for him. Let's see how creative he can get with his excuses, and then we'll come back and talk some more.
As far as the hours, a lot of times my sergeant knew where I was going, where I was at. And when I was there for a majority of the time, I would check out there. But not all the time, not every time, but for the vast majority, I would check out there. Through my dispatch on my computer, any of the sort, I would, somebody knew where I was, whether I talked to them on the phone or I was checked out there. They knew where I was, I would say probably 50–60% of the time. Not very high numbers, but I mean, as troopers, we go and do and don't really report, unless we have to or unless we need to. Now, the issue that was stated about me being undressed at the Marshall County Post. So the issue that night was I had actually called my sergeant, told him I was going there, I was going to eat lunch. I actually completed a report in the parking lot, submitted it in the parking lot, went inside. I checked out on my computer for lunch. So I was checked out on lunch. I went inside. I took off my gun belt, I took off my vest, my shirt, I sat down on the couch with 4 other people and watching TV. Was there probably actually inside sitting on the couch for I would say probably 10 or 15 minutes. I turned around, my sergeant with his body camera turned on, walks in with my lieutenant and tells me to report to the post. Got dressed, went to the post. I was told to go work another county, mind my business, lay low, it'd be the end of it, nothing else. That was definitely not how that worked out. The body worn camera, at the time, we didn't have the internet at the house, so I didn't plug my body camera up at the house. I had magnets on time, and on my console, I would take it off and I would stick it to it, plug it up, it would download videos, charge, whatever. There were multiple times, even after, they addressed the issue with me, you need to wear your body camera, make sure you start doing better. I still stuck it there. I'd get out of the car real quick and forget it sitting there. That was on me, I did that. And I didn't really do anything to fix it to start with. So I just kind of let it roll, which was not a good decision. Texting while driving and social media, obviously I have no excuse for that. That is not okay, but I did it and I don't have an excuse for it except I did. The fake traffic stops, I did state that, I had not done it my second employment when I was rehired by the Tennessee Highway Patrol. And I also stated that I couldn't remember a time really that I did in my previous employment, but I was sure that I did. And I'm pretty sure that was my verbiage, not what he said, because I thought it was cute or any of the sort. That's not really how it was. As far as lighting friends and stuff like that, yes, I did do that. But the only 2 traffic stops that I can actually think that were fake stops, and this has been months now that I've had time to sit and really think about it, there was 2 that I can think of for sure. One was July the 5th, 2019. That was a time in which I stopped a vehicle that had 4 different women in it, but it was planned. It was known. It was a fake traffic stop. That is the day that I proposed to my wife. And another time is when I had stopped a friend of mine with his girlfriend in the car, and me and him had talked about it. It was planned, and that's when he proposed to his girlfriend. As far as fake traffic stops, that's the only time I can tell you that I've ever made a fake traffic stop. As far as the ghost stops, I'll tell you, I can't remember a time. And I said that I can't tell you if I have or if I haven't, but I'm pretty sure that I have. So it was a big thing back then. And I know some people got fired for it, but it would have been years ago where, you know, wanted activity, working midnights, there is no activity. So I can't tell you if I have or if I haven't, but I'm pretty sure that I have. So it was a big thing back then. And I know some people got fired for it, but it would have been years ago where, you know, wanted activity, working midnights, there is no activity sometimes. So you check out with a car in the parking lot. I've seen it done. I've been with people when they do it. I'm sure I have done it, but I can't tell you times that I have done it.
So now he's talking about the ghost stops. And again, it's completely lost on him that it's better what these guys want is they want all the benefits and they don't want any of the consequences. So instead of saying to his sergeant, hey, look, the fact is there just wasn't a lot of traffic this night. You know, I didn't stop any cars. You can look at my GPS logs. You can see where I was. I responded to all the wrecks. I just didn't observe any traffic violations. At least you're protected, because then if I'm a trooper, right, and let's say that I'm in a rural area and I just didn't observe any traffic violations, and I'm expected to make he makes a comment that it used to be 10 and 10. That's 10 contacts in 10 hours, 1 an hour. Since they got the raise, that's now 2 contacts per hour. You can hear the underpinnings of that policy in both what he says and both what the investigator says. They expect these guys to go out and have 2 contacts per hour no matter what happens. And this is what you get when you have quota-driven policing, because obviously it's illegal to say you have to write this many tickets. It's not illegal to say you have to make contact with this many people. The end result is the same. The quality of the law enforcement efforts are they bottom out. So if I'm a trooper and I say, look, I came out, I was out for a 10-hour shift. I had 3 wrecks, so that took me 4 hours. I needed to make 12 contacts for my 6 hours remaining. I only observed 3 traffic violations. So I was 9 contacts short for my shift. If a supervisor gives a trooper a hard time in that scenario, the trooper could say, I tell you what, put it in writing that you want me to find violations that don't exist, and you want me to stop cars where there is no observed violation simply so they could be introduced to the Tennessee Highway Patrol. When you put that in writing and you put it in my file, I'll start making those traffic stops. Because then you've at least said, hey, look, are you asking me to break the law and make enforcement actions against people who haven't committed a traffic infraction? Because I'm not going to do that. So that's what he could have done. It's completely lost on him that it would be much better to come in deficient on your activity expectation than to create things out of thin air that aren't real. And what they want is they want to not have to have the tough conversations about why they're not making the stops. They want whatever comes along with meeting expectations, but they don't want the consequences. So they create these scenarios that don't exist out of thin air so they can keep the supervisors off their back and also still not have to do the work. And so that's what we have here with this trooper.
My resignation from the Tennessee Highway Patrol, which has been kind of controversial now, had absolutely nothing to do with this investigation. From the time this investigation started to the time I resigned, it was 6 months. When I got the call from someone in here telling me I needed to be here, it was roughly 9 or 10 months. 4 months after I resigned that I found out that I'd resigned in lieu of termination. Okay, my reason for resigning from the Highway Patrol had nothing to do with this investigation. It was because on March the 6th of this year, my house burned. And I've had a lot of issues with my supervision and my captain. And when he started telling me it didn't look like I had much to burn, and telling other troopers and sergeants that I set my own house on fire for an insurance scam, that was my reason for resignation. And I will not look back. So If my opinion is taken into consideration, I don't feel like anything I've done is ethically wrong, morally wrong, or illegal. I was post-certified before I came to the Highway Patrol, and personally, I don't feel like I deserve to be decommissioned based off some general violations.
Okay, so this guy has lost so much of the benefit of the doubt with his command staff that they have accused him internally, at least, of setting his own house on fire in order to collect insurance. So that's how they feel about this guy. But there are some alarming things that I also heard from the investigator in this particular instance. And that is that they're going back in the summer of 23 to look at traffic stops that are old, that are a year old, 6 months old. My question is, if we can afford to pay $70,000 a year, 65 is their starting pay, guaranteed to be right at 100 within 10 years. If we can afford to pay them that, as a taxpayer, I want to know why you can't. There's about 1,000 sworn Tennessee Highway Patrol troopers. I want to know why you can't have a trooper assigned to 50 troopers or 25 troopers where every single week or every single day when that trooper works, that the supervisory assigned staff reviews their body cam. Why not? Once you review the body cam, then you don't have to worry about not catching a guy doing what he's doing in a year. Now, will they like it? No, but I guarantee you there'll be some more accountability. There'll be less troopers doing stuff like this, and it will be something that the public would feel much better about when they spend that money. But they want to spend this money on these guys, and you know they're getting the money for the state because they're writing the tickets. It's not like a revenue issue, right? It's not a revenue issue. It is simply a broken law enforcement leadership mentality where their bend is more towards cover-up than it is towards transparency. I genuinely believe that. They're going to say, well, we don't have the staff to have, somebody reviewing these. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Hire the staff. As a taxpayer, I'd much rather have you hire 100 auditors that sit there and watch police body cam and flag it for irregularities than I would for you to be coming back and saying, well, the only evidence we have of this trooper actually doing this is his own admission, because our body cam system doesn't go far enough back to where we could actually go back and look at the traffic stops. That means that you are not doing a thorough review of your trooper's activities or even knowing what is going on. You got a guy like this out here doing all kinds of stuff he ain't supposed to be doing on the taxpayer dime, and you don't even know because you don't have anybody dedicated to watching the footage. It's ridiculous. And I'll say this too. They could have probably charged this guy criminally with something if they had been auditing the body cam of these troopers as they dock their body cam, and long before it would ever be an issue where they need to go back a year and try to find some footage. Let's listen to some of the questions and some of the comments that are made by the commissioners, and we'll come back and wrap it up.
So you said you don't think you did anything illegal?
No, sir, I don't feel like I did anything illegal. No, sir.
Is it illegal to go 90 miles an hour in the city limits of Franklin?
I have to withdraw that statement because that is definitely illegal, and I agree with you.
Is it illegal to be on your phone while driving?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Commissioner Beverly, in the report they referenced, if I'm reading it correctly, something about a stop with a felon with a gun. Is that the correct incident I'm referencing?
A stop with a felon with
a firearm.
So there's been multiple. I'm not sure exactly.
Okay. It might be a different one. The other one was, can you tell me about kind of the incident where you utilized dispatch and what did stop somebody in the EMS parking lot and needed a contact?
Absolutely. So I actually put that down here and forgot to mention that. So one of the route actually that I was sitting on was Nashville Highway. It's one of our main routes that we sit on. I was sitting there stationary, watching, traffic go by, body cam stuck to the middle console like it was. The individual drove by. I saw she was not wearing her seatbelt, and I said, oh yeah. And I did think that was funny, but it was a legitimate violation. So I pulled out, lights on, and I had recently talked to some of my other friends that were there. And so I had called them and I said, hey, watch this, because it was funny. However, it was a legitimate traffic stop for a legitimate purpose. And I believe the body cam wasn't on, but if I'm correct, and I may not be correct, but the dash cam, you can even hear her admitting saying she wasn't wearing her seatbelt. you know, I feel as though because I didn't take any actual enforcement action or issue a warning, it was deemed a false traffic stop, which in my opinion was not accurate. It was a legitimate traffic stop of somebody that I knew, but just because I knew him, I don't feel like that, made a difference.
What was funny about it?
What was funny about it?
They said here that it was gonna be funny. What was funny about it? What was the humor? What humor?
The fact that I knew her.
What's funny about that? Why would you think this is funny? And it says something about the vehicle returned from dispatch. Like what's fun? What was the humor supposed to be in that? What did you find funny other than I know everybody in this room. I don't find it funny that I know Commissioner Wright. That's not humorous. So what was funny?
Well, a lot of times when people get pulled over and they talk about it, it's funny, ha ha. Like, I understand how you look at it as why is that's funny, but it was just the fact that I knew the person and, she did commit a violation. I was pulling her over for it. And I wasn't the only one that found it funny because everyone else did there also. So I can't exactly tell you why I feel that it's funny, but in general, it was.
This is Commissioner Green. I'm just curious, wouldn't you think that would be embarrassing for the driver of the vehicle for you to call her coworkers out to watch her be stopped and possibly get a citation?
No, sir, I didn't. Not the relationship that we had, all of us as friends. It was a friend group. I didn't think that would be an issue at all.
Commissioner Wright, in your training of the Highway Patrol, have you heard the words professionalism, integrity, those words before?
Yes, sir, I have.
Does that seem like that applies to that situation?
No, sir. The majority of my patrol history, I've applied that, but in that exact situation, no, I don't feel that it was.
I I do appreciate you coming here and admitting up to most of this stuff. I want to go back and hit one thing, for me. You work night shift, and what counties did you work in?
I covered Marshall County, Murray County, Lawrence County, Giles County. A lot of times we covered Lincoln County, Moore County, Bedford County, and occasionally Hickman County on I-40.
You made a comment that you probably did go stops, but you don't remember any specific go stops, but working night shift, there really wasn't any activity. You covered that many counties on night shift. There was activity that could have been done, not.
Yes, sir. A lot of the times we sat on the interstate, we would stay central because we answered calls in those counties. I wouldn't drive to those counties and just cruise around. We would sit on the interstate and make our stops. And don't get me wrong, when I say right now it's our contacts per hour, well, it was, I'm not sure what it is now, 2 contacts per hour. Well, I mean, I would have 2 or 3 DUIs a week, but I still wouldn't meet my contacts per hour.
I'm just saying, I don't think it would be an excuse to say, well, I did go stops to keep my activity up, to make it look like I was doing something when I was covering that many counties on night shift.
So that would have been through my first employment, and that would have been when I had just covered 1 county in Lincoln County. That would have been in anywhere from 2016 to 18, roughly. After that, I started covering Bedford County, Moore County also. So during that time, it would have been, like I said, my first employment with the Highway Patrol when I was a fresh trooper in 1 county. Then it wasn't contacts per hour. They wanted X amount. I say wanted, but probably not the verbiage that I should have used. But the rule of thumb is 10 and 10.
I guess I'm seeing it was an issue and through your admission, there were go stops in your previous employment. And then April of 2023, the numbers didn't match up. And then again in September of 2023, the numbers didn't match up. And then you're having a problem with performance. You see how it's hard to give you the benefit of the doubt there.
Yes, sir. I understand that. And going back, in my employment with the Highway Patrol, I had never once been told that I needed to pick up the pace. It was always slow down. I was having pursuits, use of force, traffic stops, DUI, all this sort. There was never an issue of you're not doing enough. I've never actually had my integrity questioned until all of this. And I feel like a 10-year streak I don't get me wrong. Like I said, I have made my mistakes this past year. I did that. I can't anything but own up to it. I understand that. But I mean, I get it. I went 9.5 years with little to no supervision, no issues, exceptional performance. And then I had an issue. I asked for, which actually in my interview, they had asked me, I should have let my supervisors know what I had going on so they could have intervened. I kept my mouth shut. I didn't say anything. However, my supervisors knew everything that I had going on. They also granted me 1 week of work off to deal with that. I applied for FMLA twice and was denied both times. So I understand, but I feel as though my performance was never really in question.
And I'll ask him again for clarification. What was the purpose of asking your friends inside the EMS office to step outside whenever you were performing the traffic stop?
Because they would have found it kind of humorous.
Okay.
That doesn't make it okay, but yes, sir, that's why.
Did you run the subject's information over your radio?
Yes, I did.
Was it loud enough for them to hear?
I believe so, yes.
Do you see how that can infer that we're divulging criminal NCIC information to someone who's not certified to have that information or has no authority to or reason to know that information?
Actually, no, sir, I didn't see it that way at all. Seeing as we were all friends, and they all knew, no, I didn't see it that way. I didn't think of it that way, and it never crossed my mind or went into consideration.
I have friends like that as well, but I'm not divulging information I know through NCIC or even making it where they're aware of to hear that information unless they're licensed to do so. You understand how that presents some problems?
Yes, sir, I understand that.
You signed a paper with the Tennessee Highway Patrol stating you understand what the protocols and procedures are on how you can utilize that information, when it can be accessed and who it can be shared with?
Yes, sir, I do.
You feel like you adhere to that policy?
At that time, no, sir, I did not.
You mentioned your time where you were doing things the right way, but during that 9-year span, is that when you were making the ghost stops?
I can't say for sure. I said that I'm sure that I have, but I can't sit and think of a single time that I did. But once again, I know that, I mean, I've been with people that have done it, but I can't sit and tell you a single time that I have actually done it myself. And I told them that in my interview exactly because I can't be sure that I haven't, but I can't think of a time that I have.
I mean, do you dispute the Highway Patrol findings that you made ghost stops?
I dispute that, yes, sir, because I can't, well, I can't say that either because I just admitted to the two that in which that I did make false traffic stops.
When I'm not talking about the ones where you help facilitate engagements.
Yes, sir.
I was talking about the ghost stops where you run a tag and say you stop the vehicle, but never stop the vehicle. You dispute that you dispute what they're saying that.
I would dispute that because I tried to make that clear that I don't know, I didn't think, I don't think I have until the question was asked numerous times and papers were put in front of me asking to make sure that I knew that if I lied, it was a criminal offense and everything. I said, I'm sure I have. Can't tell you a single time that I have, but I'm sure that I have. And I believe that was my verbiage.
But now you're saying you never made those ghost stops.
I'm not saying that I haven't. I'm telling you that I can't think of a single time that I have. Saying that no, for sure that I haven't without a shadow of a doubt. I would love that to be true, and I feel as it is, but I can't say that because I don't know. I don't remember doing it.
Is that, I mean, hypothetically, would making ghost stops, do you think that has the potential to discredit the Tennessee Highway Patrol?
Absolutely.
And law enforcement in general?
Yes, sir.
Can I ask a question to the investigator for a second? Step aside, please.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Does the Tennessee Highway Patrol, through the investigations that were conducted, do y'all have proof that he made ghost traffic stops?
No, sir. Just his admission. Due to our retention with the video, there's no way to go back that far.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just trying to make sure I heard you right. Did you say that you don't remember making any ghost stops? You don't recall making any?
No, sir. I can't recall a single time that I made a ghost stop. I mean, I explained, through I can't remember every, thing I've done, but no, I can't recall a single time that I've made a ghost stop.
But by your own admission to the investigator, you said you did.
I believe I said I wasn't sure and I couldn't remember if I had or done anything of the sort multiple times until the question was repeatedly answered until I said, I'm sure I have, but it would have been a long time ago when I was previously employed.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
You did say during that time, though, that you had observed other troopers doing the same thing.
Yes, sir.
So you recall them doing it?
Yes, sir.
What were your thoughts when they did that?
not my monkey, not my circus. And I believe that was the actual statement that was made when it was talked about.
Commissioner Wright, Mr. Cotton, I'm gonna go ahead and, if everybody else kind of done questions and get us moving forward a little bit. I feel like your integrity to being a law enforcement officer has been severely damaged in meeting the things that the Tennessee Highway Patrol found. I'm gonna make a motion that we decertify based upon departmental violations, policies, and procedures.
Commissioner Beverly, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion amongst commissioners? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. The motion is to approve this request for decertification. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Hearing none, motion carried. Investigator will explain to you what the next steps are.
Yeah, so obviously again, it goes completely over his head that it is reminiscent of 12 and 13-year-olds that are going to sit around, light each other up. You know, it's one thing to light your buddy up as he's driving by, whatever, mess with him, haha, laugh, go on about your business. But to conduct an actual traffic stop where almost as many police officers are killed on traffic stops as are to gunfire and other causes in the United States every year. So this video isn't about officer safety. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is every single time that you stop a car where you don't actually have a violation, you are violating their constitutional rights. You are subjecting yourself to being struck by a vehicle on the side of the road, and you're hailed as a hero. Think about this. This guy goes out and he sees his buddy John, and he decides, ha, 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 I'm going to mess with John. So I stop him, whatever. Gets on the side of the road up on the interstate, messing with John, sitting there talking, blah, 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 blah. Gets hit and killed by an inattentive driver. Now we've got a trooper hailed as a hero with state benefits because he decided it would be funny to stop his buddy John, violate John's rights, right? So let's say that this accident happens and John is also struck and injured. What do you think John's doing? John's going finding him a lawyer. John's going to file a 1983 suit. He saw me. I didn't commit any traffic violation. There was no traffic violation. He was laughing about it, blah, 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 blah. And the taxpayers of the state of Tennessee should be paying for all of my injuries and a violation of my constitutional rights. All because this idiot thought that he would act like a 13-year-old and blue light his buddy and actually conduct a full traffic stop so he could get it on his activity sheet. That's what we're dealing with here. And as unserious as this guy is, the fact that he wants to stand there and demand to be taken seriously is preposterous. And that's what the issue is. You are an unserious person doing a serious job, demanding respect, having authority over the public, and you're sitting here making excuses for every single thing that you do while also saying, I don't have any excuses. In closing, we get the law enforcement that we tolerate. And we gave these guys a big bunch of money for raises. And the ineffective leadership of the Highway Patrol, they're so reactive. They wait till something like this happens. And what it boils down to is they were getting complaints about this guy. There's no question in my mind. Law enforcement is completely reactive unless they're trying to mess with you. When it comes to internal affairs investigations, when it comes to administrations doing something like firing and decertifying a police officer, it is in direct correlation to too many people complaining about this guy. He's getting complained on by the DA. He's getting complained on probably by the people who are sitting in the EMS lot all the time. And so it's the squeaky wheel gets the grease type deal. All they care about is shutting people up. They don't care about transparency. They don't care about accountability. All they want is for you to shut up and let them pull people over and do whatever they're going to do, get their shiny awards. When you do statistic and quota-driven policing, this is what you get. It will always be what you get. It will never get better until a service model is what is incorporated into the mantra and the mission of the Tennessee Highway Patrol and any other agency for that matter. Anyway, that's all for this one, guys. I know it's a long video. Really appreciate you sticking it out. As usual, I do not do memberships on the channel. So if you want to support the channel right now, the only way to do that is through PayPal or Venmo. I put the links on the screen right here. I also put them in the description. Please don't feel obligated. I don't expect anything from you, and I really appreciate the support that you already give. Please remember to like and subscribe and leave a comment on the video. Let me know what you think about the post process, this trooper, or anything else that's on your mind. Check out some of the other videos on the channel and leave a comment on there as well. Until I see you again, take care. Always film your interactions with the police and keep your evidence to yourself.